So today we're going to talk about playbooks. We're going to talk about in really just like early stages of scaling. So this is really for anybody who maybe you're at a company that's trying to scale, maybe you're in a role and you're trying to figure out better ways to scale as well too. My two very esteemed colleagues here have a boatload of experience in working with a mix of kind of growth, early growth and growth stage companies. And so whenever we were putting together the lineup, I said nobody better than Becca or not Becca. I'm just looking at Becca. Nobody better than Deb and Taylor. So really excited to talk through this with you today. What I would say is, look, for both my folks on Zoom and my folks on LinkedIn, feel free, start dropping your questions. Again, maybe you're in the shit right now. Maybe you're trying to improve. Maybe you're trying to, I don't know, find ways to up your own game. Feel free to drop questions in the Q&A or questions in the comments. Make sure, yes, Steve, we are recording this. So we are recording this. That does not mean that you should leave. Okay, he's got to leave. That's okay, Steve. We're recording this for you. Okay. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the conversation. Taylor, Deb, how's life? How are things going?
Deb?
I'm gonna go first. Life is good. It's great to see you guys. I wish we could be in person. Life is good. Lots of exciting things happening in the tech startup space. Tons of companies growing and hiring and looking for help. And so this is a very hot topic right now. So thanks for putting it together.
Love it. Taylor, what's up with you, man? By the way, I had a question. Is that a picture of you behind you?
I almost took it down because I always wonder about the people that don't ask. But unfortunately, no, my wife won't let me have this picture anywhere else in our house, so it gets stuck there.
I thought you meant me, and you were talking about these pictures.
Is that a picture of you? I was going to ask if that was.
No, it's my 6-year-old.
Yeah,
yours is a much better picture.
it's a big one. I don't know where to go other than under like a mattress or something at this point. So we're trying to. I'm actually looking into putting some whiteboard tape on the back of it.
There you go.
Yeah, it spins around in real time. So all right. So this session again is really for anybody, company or individual who again is kind of going through those early phases of scaling. What you all can expect from today is both a mix of both strategy and what works and what doesn't, and also some very, very specific tactical things to get into. So both Taylor and Deb, like I said before, have worked with tens of these kind of growth stage scale up companies, just like myself, some have went like this and others have went like this and others have went kind of like that. So we've had a chance to kind of see what are the main characteristics of success here. And we wanted to first start with this concept of a playbook. And so Deb, I'm going to throw this first one to you.
Sure.
What goes into a sales playbook, and why do you think it's so crucial for early stage companies?
Great question. So I think the most important thing I think that goes into the playbook is not what actually goes into the playbook. It's what's the plan around the playbook. So I can give you a long list of things that have to go into it. But I think a document that sits, I was going to say on a shelf, but in a proverbial drive somewhere is completely useless. So you can do the exercises and you can come up with everything that has to go into it. But if there isn't a plan to pull it through and to make sure that there's reinforcement, either from a sales leader or an external consultant like Skaled or the CEO or whoever has the skill set, it's completely useless. So I'm sidestepping the question to reinforce what I think actually makes playbooks work. Happy to give you a laundry list of what I think makes.
Like what would you say are like the top 2 or 3, Deb? Like if you said in playbooks you see reinforcement's a given. For me at least, like you know that.
Sure.
Well, it's not a given, but for you and me, it's a given. I know.
Okay.
It's definitely not a given for, I'd say, 90% of folks. What do you think are like some of the more important elements? When you think about a world-class playbook.
Yeah. So if we're going to live in a world where it's an assumption that there's going to be reinforcement, I would look at, is it 2 or 3 categories? 2 categories. One is the top of the funnel, and I'll list what I think goes into that. And then the second is the bottom of the funnel. So without a clear definition of your ICP, your buyer personas, what Skaled calls the worldview, the cadences that map to those personas, the content that maps to those cadences, the importance of LinkedIn, even if your buyer personas are not on there at scale. Without those things, the top of the funnel is going to be broken from out of the gate. And so there's a tremendous amount of work that goes into kind of the development and the codification of all of those things. And then I think once we've got someone in the funnel, you're talking about, discovery documents, none of this getting on the call and saying, where are you located? Like, don't do that if you're a sales rep. Spend way more time preparing than you actually spend on the phone. Prep docs, discovery docs. Make sure you understand how to extract their pain. So Skaled frequently uses the language of current state and ideal state. So do you know what an ideal state looks like with your technology? And if not, stop and figure that out first, but then be able to extract current state and ideal state. And then within that, farther down the funnel through your sales stages, which belong in the playbook too, making sure you have the capacity to define next steps and next steps. And then lastly, sort of what's the quid pro quo methodology for getting contracts in. So there's sort of like a bucket of things in the funnel once a prospect is in the funnel, and a bucket of things that are sort of at the top of the funnel. That was a lot.
I love that.
I just
too much. I think it's great. Taylor, what about you, man? So when you think about this, Deb's talking about the funnel, right? Which I actually think is a great way to think about it, which is, what does my funnel look like? What are the bottlenecks within it? What else do you think when you think about, again, kind of playbooks that work? And like I said, and Deb, I want to be clear with before, by no means do I think that people actually reinforce almost anything in a playbook. So I think that we'll go to that out, because I do want to go deeper on that, because I feel like that's the actual fall down point, and I know you know that more than anyone. So what about you, man? What about you, Taylor? You've built these playbooks out, man. Why is it crucial for early stage companies?
I mean, I look at it like this. If you've ever put together IKEA furniture and you tried to do it without the directions, it's kind of, it's pretty much the same thing. Like, your CRM is the Allen wrench, right? But that's about it. Like, so good luck. And then it's, so yeah, I mean, like what Deb was saying, all of those pieces go into it. I think that, as far as pieces in there, what I look for is success and adoption. Are people taking pieces of the playbook and maybe tacking them to their desk? Like, it does, like you said, if it's collecting dust, it's worthless, right? So like, what format does it need to be in? Like, usually it's in a deck or something like this, but what are we going to extract? How are we going to put this into play so it doesn't live in a drive? So what pieces do we need to print out and pin to your desk or encourage that kind of behavior? If you see that, then it's like, whoa, they're using it, right? And the tactical, those pieces are huge, but because I create a lot of them for smaller teams, I would say right out of the gate. And I don't think any time is too early to start thinking about your playbook, right? Or start putting it together. Call it a mini playbook, get a starter playbook, however you want to refer to it. But even teams of 2 and 3, right? What's the workflows? Is there a handoff? Are we handing things off here? What does that feel like? What should it feel like? So above and beyond those buyer persona pieces, the workflow map for internal, so that things don't fall through the cracks, are super crucial as well.
There's a lot, right? So are there pieces of this? How about this? Maybe to follow up, and either one of you can jump in. What are out of the more, we'll call it like the tactical, what I like about what you said, Taylor, is this idea of like, make sure it's Deb mentioned it first, kind of not just gathering digital dust. And then you talked about making it living and breathing. And again, that's, kind of, so it's in their day to day. Are there pieces of content, whether it is things like personas or discovery script or demo talk tracks? If I said, you got to pick one or two, if I said, the piece that most people are maybe missing or not doing a good job of, that actually will move the needle for them, what would your one or your two be? Taylor, you go first this time.
I'd say it has to go with what's working, what's not working now. Like, if you're not asking those questions almost every week at a minimum, kind of thing, then you have to be, right? So the putting that piece in there. So if you know that you're a call focused or email focused, or you're using multiple channels, right? Where are things breaking down? And let's make sure that we have a plan that everybody can adopt. You want to talk about repeatability in this. If you have all 5 salespeople or however many salespeople taking a different tack, and you're not watching like who's doing what and what's actually cutting through, you can't push that across the rest of the team. And that, I think, is really the core aspect, is like, what are we doing that's actually working, and can we get everybody doing that as well so we can prove it at scale?
Okay. So for you, I heard, again, like the ways to analyze the process, that, like, again, where you see a lot of people, or where this is breaking down for a good amount, is these people don't have it, like the way to analyze it. And I think that you're right? It's like early on, it's like you're just looking at top line revenue. You're just like, okay, our sales coming in, and like maybe like then we'll just optimize based on gut, right? Which is what I think a lot of people do. Deb, for you, maybe I'll say the question a little different for you. Is there a piece of, because you talked about personas, you talked about discovery. If I said again, Deb, you have to have a playbook that has 1, maybe 2 sections, and that this is going to get me part of the way there, what would you list as those sections? What would your kind of 1 or 2, like, this is the one where I see if people get it right, they win?
So if I had to pick one in the top of the funnel and one when customers are in the funnel, they're thematically connected with keeping in mind that nobody cares what you think, and nobody cares that you'd love to set a meeting, and nobody cares that you'd love to check in, and nobody cares. They actually don't care. What do they care about? They care about their own problems and the challenges that they have. And so how do we create the DNA in a startup or a small, an earlier stage company? A playbook is essentially a way of doing things, a way of selling that works. We'd have to focus on the personas at the top of the funnel, because you have to think about who you're talking to and what do they care about and what keeps them up at night. And are they more introverted or more extroverted, more likely to pick up the phone, more likely to respond to research? So personas sort of orient you towards the other, which is critically important. And then once someone's in the funnel, same thing. That's why research is so critically important. Think about what matters to them, and how can you talk in terms of things that keep them up at night, that orient you as someone who can solve a problem that they either A, didn't know they had, or B, know that they have and have absolutely no idea how to buy it or solve it.
I love that. Can I lob something onto that?
Yeah, man. Lob away.
The buyer persona thing is huge. Like, it's kind of an exercise to go through it.
It's an exercise, right? Exactly.
But I think what I've been really seeing a lot of success with lately too is, like, if you can align the company objective, what do we need to do? Like, move top line revenue. We need to, if it's an SDR, maybe they're just not breaking through on the calls, right? Let's set that objective that we know is going to help achieve the greater company objective. It may be a sub objective, right? And then what actions are going to actually move the needle on that? If you don't know, that's okay, but take a guess, and let's start measuring that, and let's all try it, right? But the buyer persona piece that I wanted to lob onto is that, a lot of buyer personas, you walk in and they're, hey, yeah, we got buyer personas, it's like, great, we see it. And it's like, they're, women and men between, 30 and 80, it's like, great, it's like, what good is this? I don't know what we're going to do with this. And then it's like, well, where are they? And what do they care about? Like, those are the questions that really need to go into the buyer persona. If I was going to make a short one, it would just be like, where are they? What do they really care about? What are they thinking about? And how do we want to meet them there, as you said, Deb, because they don't care about you. They
don't care that you'd love to set a meeting. Don't say, I'd love to set a meeting ever again.
Don't go and say, I see you're in your 40s. Would you like to talk? That's not going to
help. This is so, and again, I'll just tell kind of mine. I remember, being a rep, and the first time I got exposed to buyer personas, I'm like, man, this is some arts and crafts bullshit. Like,
totally.
this doesn't matter. Yeah, this doesn't matter, etc. And then I think, pretty quickly I learned that, because the way I think about this is, how can I, and I was probably conditioned this way through, some good and some, great sales leaders, which was, if I can't understand, and I used to remember I had a boss and a boss's boss, very first question, how do they make money? How does this company make money? He's like, if you can't tell me how this company makes money, that means you don't understand their space, and how are you going to help them? And then when you take it down to the next layer, which is the person, if you don't understand that person's KPIs, if you don't understand what a director of operations does in consumer packaged goods manufacturing versus industrial manufacturing, not just manufacturing and directors of operations, how can you help them? And if you truly think that sales is a job of helping people, or sales is a job of guiding or facilitating, if you don't know how a company makes money, if you don't know how that role is KPI'd, how can you help them? And that for me, I think was like the big epiphany, because I think I saw the same thing that you all did too, which is like, why aren't people connecting? Well, they don't know what these people do. And how are you going to connect with someone if you don't know what they do?
Yeah, I mean, and the biggest companies are just as guilty. It's not just a startup thing. I mean, I got
absolutely.
I'm not going to call out. I hate calling out Salesforce, but I got an email. It's like, hi, do you want to set up a meeting? And it's like, I already, it's like, I don't know. What do you want to talk about? And it's just like, talk about what they want to do. And it's like, no, I don't really want to set that meeting. Sorry.
Yeah, you want to talk about that? We'll talk about this or that. Yeah, like I've got NetSuite has just been hounding me. And it's like, and then I had this other one, and I'm trying to think, this guy, what did he hit me up with? It was like, can you please just like let me know so I can cross this off my list or something. I'm like, right. Dude, I'm crossing off your list for you because I'm archiving all your shitty emails. So like that is me telling you silence is golden, right? That's not the rule. So we've actually got a really good question here from Ryan Whittick. Ryan, what's up, man? This is a great question. And for everyone else who's joining, whether you're on Zoom or you're joining us on LinkedIn, keep the questions coming. These are the exact type of questions that I think we want to get in here and tackle. So Ryan's question, I'll copy and paste it here for everybody too. Let me paste it here. Let me get it over in LinkedIn. So he says, depending on the org and business, what are the top 1 to 3 metrics you look at to determine if something is working or not? Do you have, again, because both of you kind of talked about this concept here of like, you kind of look at what's working, what's not. I think we've kind of come to agreement around some of the core elements you need to have around knowing the buyer persona, knowing the discovery talk track, and again, some of the right questions to ask. What are the metrics when you think early on, and maybe some of the metrics that are noise too, or metrics maybe you don't think about, let's say specifically when you're scaling like to your first million, or maybe from like 1 to 5 million.
You want to go a bit, Deb?
Sure. So I think, again, if we think top of funnel, mid funnel, obviously, as Ryan says, it depends on the organization, but top of funnel, I think where a lot of organizations go wrong is they look at just activity metrics. Like, did you hit your call numbers? Did you hit your email numbers? Those things matter. They tend to be a proxy for actually setting meetings, but I want to look at, top of the funnel. I want to look at like interest, open rates, click-through rates. Obviously, meetings set is the holy grail. But I want to look at, where am I getting some traction? Where am I getting videos viewed? There's one team I'm working with now that's literally setting meetings by posting videos on LinkedIn, and people are inbounding to them because the videos are so good and they're short. So obviously, it takes a long time to make a good short video, but that's not in any activity metrics that you're going to capture in Outreach or SalesLoft or HubSpot. I think it's important to look at the things that ultimately matter and then work your way up versus starting from working your way down. It's great if you can hit your 1,000 emails, 1,000 phone calls with the combo of, some ABM and some spray and pray. But ultimately, let's look at the little details and the little indicators at the top of the funnel. And then farther through the funnel, I want to look at not just closed won deals. Again, that's the holy grail, but I want to look at, as you move farther up, how many people do you have involved? If it's an enterprise deal and you've got one person and they're a champion and I had a great first call, I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this, you're not going to get the deal closed, even though the call was amazing and this, that, and the other thing that's happening, and that's activity. Do you have 5 to 7 people involved in the deal? Can you understand the org map? Do you know who signs the contract? Do you know how long procurement takes? Even if you're only in the discovery stage, right? You can be early on, but if you can map out what you think is going to happen and when you think it's going to happen, then I'm going to believe you that you say this deal is going to come in this quarter, for example. So I think I'm saying a lot of what not to measure, Ryan, and what not to look at, but that's just as important as what to look at in the very granular sort of analysis. What about you, Taylor?
Yeah, I what I've found is that the metrics that are easy to get are often not the ones that we should be tracking. Unfortunately, like, I mean, we can
love
see
that.
who opened it,
True.
it's like, great, that's a micro win. We got them to open it, and that means we can improve our subject lines or whatever, right? Then this copy, right? And we can improve who replied, and we can work on those rates. They're not bad things to work on, as you said, like activities. Um, I've become a huge proponent of the 4DX model, which is all about lead and lag measures, right? And the simplest way to think about it is like, if you're a shoe salesman and you find out that your top seller is the one that's bringing up 2 pairs of shoes every time, right? And they're bringing up 2 pairs of shoes. Great. Everybody bring up 2 pairs of shoes for the next 2 weeks. And let's see if that moves the needle across the board, or is it just Julie that had that luck, right? And then that is what you need to track. Now, is that in your CRM? No, you're going to have to find a way to track it. And that sucks. But that's how you're going to find what actually moves the needle. And until you found what moves the needle, your purpose is to find what moves the needle,
That's right.
and that's okay. But that's, it's an ongoing challenge, and it's actually really hard to think about, or hard to figure it out sometimes. But that's the metrics I've tried to track. Now.
Yeah. And I put it in there. It's a book from the book called The 4 Disciplines of Excellence. It's by
execution, actually. It's execution.
Execution. That's right. Yeah. 4 Disciplines of Execution. And it's by, is it Covey who wrote it?
He's on it. Actually, I might.
I was going to say, I got it at my house. But it's a concept, leads and lags, that there's leading indicators. And it's even what Deb said, right? Which are the leads? Like, what are the things that you're looking for? And so I think for a lot of people, step one is to go through and do that for your business. I'm sure a lot of you have similar stories where you sit down with there it is, 4 Disciplines of Execution. There you go. Yeah, Sean Covey. That's right.
He's on it. Yeah.
So, whenever people come to you, and I'm sure you see this, right? Like, they've got a few salespeople and like, well, we're going to hire 5 more salespeople. And you're like, okay, well, why 5 more salespeople? Is that the actual bottleneck? And they don't take the time to go through, okay, what's the actual limiting constraint? What is actually stopping us from producing more, happy customers? And then they go and they're like, it's top of funnel. Okay, well, cool. Like, then to Taylor and Deb's point, let's focus on top of funnel. Well, maybe it's actually your step 3 of your sales process is going super, super long. And so, that's for me, I think some of the things I think about early on is just to do that exercise to understand, where do we need to focus? Is it about getting more people into the store, and then how do we bring 2 boxes of shoes to them? Or is it that we're getting people to the store and again, they're just not purchasing? And I think too often we rush toward hiring an account executive or, whatever we think is going to be the end all be all for it. So, all right. So we've got another great question here from Andrew Morton. What's going on, Andrew? His question, JP, I've got you here too, man. What's going on, JP? Andrew's question what are some tactics you have used successfully to accelerate velocity in the buying process?
That's a great question.
Jump in.
So one of the things that I see all the time across, doesn't matter what industry, doesn't matter how experienced a salesperson is, salespeople will not set the next call when they're on the phone. They're so eager to get through the demo and show the features, and they bump right up. It gets 1:59, and back in the day, it used to be that people were getting kicked out of the room, and now they've got to hop to their next Zoom. They're not getting kicked out of the room because they're in their living rooms, but end the meeting early, end the meeting 5 minutes early, and then you have stuff you haven't gone through yet, and set the next meeting. Take the time to pull up calendars while you are on the phone. I don't understand why people don't do this, but from CEOs to SDRs, people do not do this. And here's the thing. If you had a great call, I believe you. I think they liked you. I think you did a great job. They will hang up and they will forget everything you told them. Why? Because people are busy. And the UPS guy's at the door, and the dog is barking, and the kids are in Zoom, and people are exhausted. This has been a terrible year. And even before that, everyone was scatterbrained. They will forget. And so you'll send them an email and say, I'd love to set another time. And then you send them 15 things as a follow-up, and it's a TLDR, and they're exhausted and they can't read it. And 2 weeks go by and you're saying to your manager, I don't understand why I got ghosted. Well, I'll tell you exactly why you got ghosted, right? Though I just gave you all the reasons. So end the meeting early and set the next meeting. Set it for the next day. Don't set it for 2 weeks out. Set it for tomorrow. Set it for the next day. Now, if they're a more senior level person, don't say how's tomorrow because their schedules are probably busy. But if you did do a great job, and I believe you that you did, and they did like your technology, and I believe you that they did, they'll want to talk to you again. So set it and get it on the calendar. Wait for them to accept the invite and say, wait, I didn't see you accept the invite if they didn't accept the invite. Cut through the BS and find out if they're just being nice or if they really are going to accept the invite and they really are going to talk to you again.
That is for everyone listening right now, just doing that, I guarantee is gonna increase your close rate by 10 to 20%.
Yes.
That little, and that's what I think a lot of people don't realize with sales is it's such a game of inches. It's a game of getting 5% better at this and 10%. And whenever you, and I'm Deb, I know you and I've talked about this before, like it's just a rule. It's like you don't get off the first meeting without having the second meeting set up. And it's, again, it goes back to, it's just one of those silly things that if it just becomes how you operate, it stops becoming like a big deal. And I think for a lot of people, that's kind of the issue, right? It's like, well, what if they do this, or what if this or that? It's like, no, like I'm not, again, to Deb's point, if somebody won't book the next meeting with you, it's their way of saying like, I'm not really interested. If instead their response is this, yeah, oh, sure. Yeah, Deb, wow, this is really great. This is interesting. Can you send me some more information? I'll circulate internally, and then we can get back like next week. I'll take a look at, I'm sorry, I don't have Karen's calendar in front of me. Okay, so send that stuff over to me. That is what ends up happening.
So let's give a how-to, Jake, because that happens.
I'll solve that one. I'll solve that one
all the time. So what I would say if someone said that to me is absolutely, I will send you some more information. And what I typically do, I've learned this from Jake. What I typically do is I set a next meeting so that I can walk you through it because it's an overwhelming amount of information. And if you don't have Karen's availability, let's put some time on the calendar and we can always move it. And if they still are hamina, don't be afraid of a no. I'm sensing that this isn't feeling like the right time for you. Let them say no to you, because then you don't waste your time keeping it in Salesforce, keeping it in your pipeline, talking about it with your manager, saying, I got deals. If you don't have a deal, great. No is the second best answer to yes. Move on. But if they're giving you hamina, you're not done selling. And then figure out a way to make it safe for them to accept the next invite and continue the conversation with you.
That's it. That line right there that Deb said is, for everyone, make sure to pull that out, which is like, again, what I just do is I preempt that. So whenever I do it, and I know that we're going to have to get somebody involved who might be super senior, is I'll say, hey, let's do this. Let's pull up calendars now, real quick here. And then I just let that pause sit there. It's like, that's one of my favorite pauses in all of sales is the
pause. Actually,
hold on, I'm pulling up my calendar, and you feel that anxiety and you just sit in it for like 5 minutes, like not like 20 seconds. Like, okay, so let's do this. How does like Thursday afternoon look for you? I'm open between 3 to 5. Obviously, you don't have Deb's calendar in front of you, so let's just go ahead and put a placeholder, and then you can confirm with her afterwards. Does that work? And when you do it like that, most people, again, if they're interested, will say, yes, I'll do it. So what about for you? So again, same question to you for you, Taylor, just because I think it's a good one. Tactics to accelerate velocity. So set the next meeting, critical one. And again, that's just a script. Like the reason Deb and I say it the way we do is because we've also said it 5,000 times. And it's why this whole concept of scripts and people being like kind of like allergic to it is kind of ridiculous, because there is just kind of like a good way to say something and a bad way to say something. And so, again, when you think about building your playbook out, a lot of it, you might not think, well, Jake, like our talk track for ending the meeting, like how important is that? It's like, well, we're literally sitting here telling you like that could help to increase your sales, your close rate by 10%. Just something stupid like that. So Taylor, what about for you, man? What else? What about for you for increasing velocity?
Well, I first want to say I'm working on the art of the pause, which is you're a master of, Jake. You used it. You're just really good at it. I've seen you do it just naturally, even just in normal conversation. You're really good at bringing that out, and I love that. I think that, we talk a lot about creating urgency, and I know that, all sales programs kind of tout that, right? But how do you create urgency? To me, it really comes back to good discovery and worldview alignment. If you've done a good job on the call, trying to paint or knowing the existing world that they're living in and painting the future world, then there's a natural urgency to get there that comes out in the call, right? And you can extract that through just asking questions. Like, you know, one of my favorite ways to actually talk about this came from one of our clients over at Compliance Line, the brothers there, Gio and Nick, and we were working with their team, and they for some reason we got talking about worldview, and we used fried chicken as an example. And it was like, you know, picture you're meeting somebody at Chick-fil-A and you're like, you like this chicken? It's like, good. And you like this chicken? Yeah, I like the box. I like the crunchiness, you know, and so it's like, cool. Have you ever had this other, you know, Sally Mae's fried chicken? You never had that? Oh man, let me tell you about it, right? And then you're painting that picture. And then the way to create the urgency is like, you know what? You want to go there now? Like, let me get you directions, right? Like, try and take them there, you know, see if you can go there now. Let's go try it now. You still hungry kind of thing. But set up the next appointment, like to take them there. But if you do the worldview kind of picture painting well, the urgency comes through and you at least have the questions asked. I thought you wanted to try the chicken, right? I thought you wanted to try salmon. When are you going to try it, right? Then you can kind of bring that back up as a reminder. And I found that really helps to accelerate velocity, because then you can say, also the mirror effect is like, but didn't you say you wanted this? And didn't you say you wanted this to try it before the weekend kind of thing? Cool. Well, let's make that happen, you know? And if you can set that stage, I think that's really where you see deals get moving faster.
It's such a great call out, man. It's like, you know, we'll have companies that come to us and ask about, Jake, like our team needs to get better at closing. Our team needs to get better. And it's like, great. So we need to work on the discovery process. They're like, right. No. It's the closing. Our team needs to get better at closing. It's like, because you didn't ask the questions to know what to tie it to your point, Taylor, to create urgency.
And that it almost discovery. That's where they're lost.
It's the most important part, right? It literally is the most important part. And I think it's probably the part of the playbook I see teams wing the longest, because they think that they know the questions to ask, and they don't realize just how bad the line of questions they have and how tactical that they get so quickly ends up leading them to a lot of false positives or directing people negatively that they don't realize. And there's I can't remember where I heard it. It's like the quality of questions determines your quality of answers. And if you're really not thinking about the way, and just small changes to how you phrase questions has an amazing impact. And that's where, you know, Taylor, when you talked about, it's like, just test it. We're going to say it this way. We're going to ask the question like this versus, you know, we're going to wing it. Because again, you might think you're saying the exact same thing, but you're not. You're right. Doing a small little nuance that's actually getting you a different answer. Because, you know, it's like one of the classic examples I do is I said, look, when you're talking to a senior level person and you ask them a question, great, hey, tell me about your priorities at blah, blah, blah. They're like, my priorities? Dude. I am a VP of a 400 person division. I've got 900 of them. Like, can you, as opposed to, hey, what are the top 2 priorities for your group over the next 2 quarters? Same concept, but one will get you an answer and sounds like you know what you're talking about. The other will make it sound like you just don't get that a VP has, you know, 400 priorities as like a part of it. So I love both of these. We've got some more questions coming in. Keep them coming, everybody. JP and I actually went to business school together. JP, what's going on, brother? He says, how do you share, map, track mutual action plans? So this is a space I am super into right now. Do you all do anything? Have you all successfully implemented any mutual action plan? You know, software, or how important do you, whether even if it's with Excel or, you know, a PowerPoint, like how important is that? What do you typically use to track it now?
Taylor, you want to take this one?
I'm not sure when you're saying the action plan for like how we're going to pursue
the next steps. Yeah, exactly. So like, let's say you have that conversation with them, you talk about next steps and next steps and next steps. Are you using anything right now? And again, the answer could be no. It could be like, no, I'm not using anything. It's usually just kind of documented in like a recap email or something like that too.
No, I think it's a super smart question. I just went through and set this up for a team, and it's a new feature, I think, in HubSpot. And you can basically map automations to to your pipeline. So if whatever deal stage something is in, and by the way, I'll always put a ghosting stage in my pipelines, but because they go in and out of there. But in there you can automate task loads. So it's some of it may be an automated email or something, but making sure that I think, Jake, we have tons of stuff from Skaled on just touch points in general in follow up. Like, I can't tell you how many teams, I'm sure you see this all the time. It's like, oh yeah, we followed up and we have a free follow up policy kind of thing. Well, you give them 3
Right.
shots. It's like, great. And then you let go. What do you do with them after that? And it's like, so you're going to just work all this point and then you're going to give them 3 touch points and that's it. That's all they get. Who knows what's going on in their world. So the idea of like making sure you have a lot of touch points and that they are followed through with every time. So making sure automating those task loads every time something's in a certain stage becomes a really great tool to do that. And like, I don't know if other places have it, but HubSpot, I've noticed, just added that feature and it's pretty cool to play with. So making sure you think through, these are my 5 follow-up steps, and each one needs to have a label to it, not just like follow up. And if I see any more, I'll have a rule: do not use the word just in anything, by the way. But like just following up, no thanks. Like just gonna not answer that. How about that? And then so how do you give something of value? Like, hey, I remembered you said this, and boom, here's something you might want to think about. Let me know if it makes sense to hop on another call. Here, thought of you on this kind of concept. I saw this in the news. Whatever it is, give them something relevant, something valuable. If you don't have that, give them some social proof on what other people are doing in their industry, and ask them, point blank, how are you, addressing this, right? Try and bring out that conversation. And I think it's all about, can you get to the next conversation, period, right? And then make that valuable. And that's close enough for the win for me,
Yeah, JP. So there's a couple that we've been testing. So I'm really, this is like I think this is going to be the next big category in sales tech, which are these, I'm calling it kind of customer collaboration, which is this concept that buyers want access to information like this. And it's only getting more and more and more like that. Whereas before, it used to be like in sales, we would kind of hold back talking about pricing or don't talk about the competition. I think that radical transparency, the same way it is in B2C, is just, it's coming to B2B. And so there's a platform that we just started using at Skaled called In Accord. So there's kind of a few of them: In Accord, Recapped, Deal Point. I got a call tomorrow with this company called Buyer Assist. So there's this whole kind of category that it's bubbling up right now that is focused on kind of creating a collaboration environment between sales and the customer. And there's some tools, some things that I think are going to be critical to that or not, or like that will make or break it. But most sales teams just aren't ready for this, right? Most sales teams are not ready for like an idea of like, hey, you know what? But Dad, the beautiful part is it lays it out for everybody, because then you just lay out, you say, hey, here's our next 6 steps. Here are the people that are involved in each step. Like, what's going to be different about working with you? And like, imagine a world where we move toward radical transparency in sales, as opposed to let me hold back this thing or that thing, which is, I think, kind of what a lot of sales people have been taught. But it just isn't, it's like these idea of putting up friction points and barriers to information, I think are going to, I think the best customer experience is going to be able to beat the best product over and over and over again, because it's easier to do business with. And it's like to me, the whole concept of like an inbound SDR is such an archaic role for like 90% of orgs. The concept that like my first I literally filled out a form that said I want to talk to somebody about buying this thing, and like I hit this people up, and now I just shut it down real quick. I'm like, this is not how this is going to work. Go get me this person. like I'm not going to sit here and get fucking qualified. Like, I already looked at your website. Here are the 3 other people's websites I've looked at. And guess what? Most of your buyers are in that bucket too. But yet you're still running the sales process from 2013, 14. And so I'm a big fan, JP, of this whole space, because I think eliminating friction from the customer journey is going to be one of the most important parts of steps as we look forward in future years.
I think the mentality that salespeople are project managers is crucial. Like, I think that using tech and systems, like what Taylor and Jake said, great examples, and by all means, like where things can be tracked, and use your CRM in a really smart and intelligent way. But as a salesperson, it's your job to make them, your buyers, be along with you for a ride that is pleasant and easy, because people do not know how to buy. And so if they say, let me regroup with my team and get back to you, that's code for, I have no idea how to do this, and make it okay that they don't know how to do it, and say, here's what I typically do. If you're going to regroup with your team, I typically join those conversations so that this doesn't become a game of telephone. So creating the language for the sales reps or for yourself that allows you to insert yourself in, so they don't have to know, because no one's going to tell you, I have no idea how to buy this technology. No one's going to say that. They're going to,
Exactly.
no one's stupid. They don't want to admit that they're not the decision maker because it feels yucky. So what does it look like to make it okay that they are who they are and they don't know how to do this, and that you do it all the time and you can tell them what the next steps are? That's why setting the next meeting is so important, and putting the agenda in the invite is so important. Just making it smooth and easy, and all they have to do is show up and you're doing all the work and they get all the credit.
Yeah, and imagine just laying that out up front, so it doesn't become this like cat and mouse game, to where, like, imagine a world where as a sales professional you just lay it all out up front. And that's what I'm pretty convinced at this point that's where we're moving. I think, like Deb said, the best salespeople have always been good project managers. This is just bringing a project management mindset to a sales process, which is something I think we're kind of like way overdue for. And again, it's just I went ahead and dropped in the chat here a few of the players. So we use Inaccord. We've also went down the path with Recap. They're both really good tools. So you can check out both of those, but the space is early. It's super
smart. If you think about it, like I keep waiting on someone to disrupt the home buying customer experience, because anybody that you've ever talked to is like, it's the worst thing ever. You show up and it's like, nobody knows what's going on. You don't know what this fee is going to be. They can't even give you a quote before you get there. It's like, you just bring an empty checkbook. You're just like, okay. And it's similar. Like, how do you support that? How do you, kind of recommend along the way? I love that you mentioned that, Deb, is agenda setting. Like, I'm huge on like the smallest 15-minute call. Let's set the agenda. That's
anything you want to add to it. Who else should be invited?
Invite them to confirm the agenda. That's another great thing, is like, what are your expectations for this call, right? Let's make sure it's on the agenda. And
here's a pro tip: if the agenda is checking in, you don't have an agenda.
You can't wait. Yeah, I can't wait for that meeting. I'm really busy. I can't wait to just check in.
Because those are the meetings that you get the decline 2 minutes before it starts, or they don't.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
So sorry, something came up and it was more important than you. So Mohammed actually has a good question here for companies that might sell through the channel. So his is about kind of distributors, but okay, let's say you're an early stage company, and so you've got your kind of direct channel. We've talked a lot about kind of a playbook around direct, right? How to run that meeting, etc. What have you seen work around channel? Or what have you seen, especially in those early stages, like the companies that are doing channel the right way, right? Or companies that have struggled with it? What would you say are kind of the, I guess, like core pieces maybe to an early channel playbook?
Deb, you want to take it?
Yeah, I mean, this is admittedly, I work with a couple of companies right now that have this. I have a little bit less experience with it, but what I have seen that works really well is if you're setting it up for the first time, CEOs aren't going to like this, but overpay commission, fuel it really well up front, and then read the tea leaves quickly on who your early adopters are going to be. There's going to be a handful or a small percentage of the reps that are going to see it as a gravy train, and they're going to get on and they're going to do everything you ask, and they're going to do it really well, and others that are going to completely ignore you. And fuel the fire of those early adopters more than you think is necessary. And so that's commission if you can, which I highly recommend because it works. But it's also, whether it's a weekly newsletter or a Slack channel or in person as it as restrictions ease up and you're able to, and making yourselves available to potentially do a good amount of the work and make sure they get all the credit for it, and then sharing those examples with others in the channel. I've seen all of that stuff work extraordinarily well, because sometimes channel sales processes are set up and they fall completely flat and we don't understand why. This is just a way to make more money. Why are they not doing it? Well, that's on us, because we haven't set it up in a way that's clear and easy and accessible.
100%.
Cool. Yeah. The thing I would add is, don't expect the channel to do your job for you. Meaning that if you want to have a successful channel strategy, you almost have to treat it like a direct sales strategy. You almost have to treat it like each rep is like their own account. And like to Deb said, kind of stuffing it's like making it easier for them to want to push your product soon enough is helpful. But the other thing is make sure you pick the right partners. Meaning if they are selling, I can't tell you how many, I'm not going to say that they're delusional, but let's call it like maybe not seeing the world the way it is. Founders were like, yeah, we've got this big partnership with so-and-so and this and that. And I'm like, great. How much is your product? Oh, it's 20,000 a year. How much is the rest of the products you're selling? 200,000. Guess what, dude? You're getting nothing. Nobody, who's gonna jeopardize a $200,000 plus deal for a 20K sale that they're gonna make 5 or 10% on? Nobody. And so I think to me, it's just about, make sure you identify the right channel partners where your product isn't just cool or would like to have, etc. It's actually going to be a meaningful addition to their mix, when you're working with distributors or other third-party channel people. So that would be my only other kind of like hot take to add on to it. Is just be ruthless about who you pick. And then when you do find the right ones, incentivize them.
And avoid the misexpectations or as even in channel management, it's like delusions of grandeur. All of a sudden, it's like you can get in the Salesforce App Store. We've made it, and it's like no one knows about you, and no one's touting you, and it's like that does not. That's just you just put your pinky toe in the door is what just happened.
That's it. Because they don't. Again, it's not a big enough piece of the pie. Yeah. If it's got to be a big enough piece of the pie, or because I think that this caveat I'm going to give is where people are going to give themselves an out, where it's like it's a really strategic component of their like growth, but most of you, that's not what you are. You're just another product. So do not hear me, well, Jake, it's not big, but you're probably not strategic. You're probably like a nice add-on, maybe possibly. Strategic means like, hey, you'll know you're a strategic partner for anybody in your distributors or channel if they're bringing you in to go meet with their sales team. If they're telling you like this and they're willing to sign like an exclusivity agreement or a territory agreement with you for some amount of volume, that's when you've got a home run partner. So we've covered a lot of ground here. There was one more question I want to take from Anya. She basically said, in enterprise sales, there can be a hesitancy of when to bring up certain things, security, implementation. When do you think is the right time to start having the conversations about what happens next? And again, being upfront and being honest about it, right? Because I think in enterprise in particular, I would say what I see as the biggest friction point between sales and CS is like, it's easy to get started. It's going to be our implementation team is going to take care of it for you. So when do you think is the right time to start talking about it? When is the right time to start to talk about security or implementation in an enterprise deal?
I'm going to go on a limb and say early, because if you can describe that landscape and you can do it really well, then it may be like, hey, look, these are all the pieces you need to be thinking about now. I know you're not ready to buy, you've got a lot of other pieces, but like once you start, because it becomes an urgency driver later, right? Is that you can use that timeline of like, well, you wanted to have this implemented by X date, right? So let me lay out this timeline now and talk about what that's going to really look like. That's also building trust. It's creating urgency all in the same shot, and being just super supportive and informative. And it's a better customer experience. Nobody likes to find out later that it's going to take 2 months to onboard this thing that they're buying, right? I would say early.
I was just going to ask my favorite question to ask, to get to that, Anya, to get to like when in the process is, you know, in the first maybe second call is when you've brought on other enterprise softwares. Who else have you involved in the process? Great way to figure out if they've never done it before and they don't know the answer. Then you know you're going to have to source other people yourself or seed for them who those people might be. And if they know the answer, say, and just out of curiosity, how long did procurement take? Because you mentioned that you need to have this up and running by August 1st. So if procurement's going to take 6 weeks, we actually should parallel path procurement while we're continuing to cross our T's and dot our I's. So you're making it more about them. Again, nobody cares about you. You're making it about them, and you're making it about making sure that you're aligned with people who can actually get things done, and you're finding out the answers to those questions. And most of the time people will say either I don't know, or, you know, Jane in procurement has to be involved from the get-go, or this is never going to happen. Great. So in addition to our call with Jake next week, why don't we also set a call with Jane? And 2 next steps is better than 1 next step.
Yeah, I'm just gonna toss on the I agree. I think it's probably a second call, right? You get the first call, you do the discovery. Second call, there's a few more people that are at the table, and so you start to have those conversations. And then I think by the third call, you're really honing in on some like specific timelines. All right, so I'm gonna just kind of, I've got a bunch of questions here, but I think we've got time for maybe just one more. So we'll kind of wrap up on this one. You know, we've talked about kind of the key elements of a playbook. We've been very prescriptive at times on talk tracks, et cetera, which I love, which I think is kind of what people look for from this. When you think about scaling and you think about kind of continuing to grow, 2 things: implementation. And Taylor, you touched on it a little bit, and Deb, you did in the very, very first question. How do you implement it, and how often do you refresh it? So you spend this time. So, okay, Deb, we've documented our personas. We've done these things. Again, how do you think, what are like the core 2 or 3 elements of a successful implementation? And then how often are you updating it?
So, I mean, this might be more tactical than what you're looking for, but I think the agendas of one-on-ones need to include the components of the playbook that are not, you know, fully flywheel spinning yet. And then something else that I've done with teams that's worked really well is actually monthly playbook review sessions. So we roll it out, we start to use it, we have our one-on-ones, we have our sales meeting. We also have a meeting where we actually go through the document and we flag things that we have to come back to, or flag, and we actually make it a living, breathing document. And there are assignments throughout the course of the month. Assignment sounds like the wrong word, but I think it is the right word, where it's like, okay, well, Jake, can you make sure you include that document we talked about in our one-on-one today here so others can see it? And it's something that's literally always open and always being edited. And if that's not done by the external sales leader, the interim sales leader, the sales leader, a rep can take responsibility for that and do it themselves. But that's going to be what makes it part of the DNA of the team. And I don't know if that's too tactical, but that's what I've seen really work well.
Yeah, I love that idea. Again, like, it's instilling that mindset, right? It's instilling that mindset of like, it never stops, right?
It's never done. It's never done.
Each month we're just going to the next thing and the next thing. All right, Taylor, you were talking about this kind of like things on your desk, et cetera. What about for you? So Deb, it sounds like for you, it's like, it's something you're reviewing monthly. You know, there's some pieces you're reviewing kind of consistently, and then you're building it into your one-on-ones with reps. You're building it into kind of a monthly development sequence, or different people are working on different parts of it. Taylor, what about for you, man? Same question, you know, kind of how are you thinking about really great practices and reinforcement, and then how often are you updating it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that playbook review session is a great way to do it. I'm going to steal that one from you, Deb. But I use something I've gotten hip to is like the rolling objectives. So it's a weekly exercise, and it's like we're taking objectives and making sure that kind of tactical playbook items are in that, so that we're reiterating. And literally that's something like, it's just a quick stand up. Like, what's our objectives for the week? Everybody has theirs. We're reviewing it. We're signing off on it. And we're, you know, because salespeople, if you think about it, they show up to like an OKR meeting. They're like, well, my OKRs are kind of the same all the time. Like, I'm just trying to grow more sales. And it's like, right, but there's sub pieces to that. Like, what are we doing this week? What are we focusing on? The other thing that I've really taken to, and I have to give like Eli Cohen like a strong credit on this and what he's built at Saleshood. But the whole video kind of let's do peer reviews of your calls. So it's not just manager reviews or listening.
I love that idea.
But like peer, and everybody's like, oh, I love the way Deb is doing that, and it's like, cool. Everybody want to try that this week? Let's all try what Deb was doing on that call. And then everybody's kind of ranking those calls or videos or even pitches, like just do that, get in the routine of doing that. And it gets the reps out of like that fear factor of having to, do a peer pitch or whatever, internal pitch sessions, because it's constant. And then everybody's learning from it ongoing. And at some point you're just iterating constantly, it's kind of the A/B testing if you can get everybody doing that.
Yeah, I think that what we're leaving hopefully everyone here with is that mindset that you're all, you don't just select a value prop and forget it. And that's not until you become like the beast in the industry and it's a well-known space, et cetera. Then it's maybe you're looking at every 3 to 6 months because you're trying to steer a big ship versus a small one. Right. But early on, when you're trying to triangulate toward what is the right value prop and what's the right value prop at scale, not just what resonates with a few people, but resonates with, the masses. I think, if you're not making those micro adjustments, you're in a tough spot. So I want to thank you both. We're at our time. Fun. This is good. There's so much good stuff out of here. And I want to thank everybody who joined us on LinkedIn and on Zoom. We are going to be for the next 7 consecutive weeks, every Monday, same time, breaking down different components of the playbook. And really the playbook isn't just the tactical playbook. It's all the different things you need around people, process, technology when you're scaling in those early days. But, like a lot of you, like both of you said, this stuff's just as applicable. Larger companies sometimes have even more dysfunction around some of these elements than smaller ones. So thank you both, Taylor. Thank you, Deb. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Jake.
It's a really great conversation. Taylor, I want to get a picture of that for my house. I'm going to say it's like some like surf legend. It kind of looks like a surf legend, like Kelly Slater or something, like back in the day. Like that's kind of like the vibe that I get.
I'll take it, man. I'll take it.
All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate you. Thank you so much again, Taylor and Deb. And we will see everyone next week.
Thank you, Jake.
Bye.